Hi Flosstube, it's Arlene here. It's Friday, May 15th, and it's been almost 2 months since I've made a video. Uh, I am like so many of you who are kind of going through that where did April go kind of stage, um, as we have all been dealing with our um, day-to-day reality of these quarantine times. I'm here in the state of New Jersey, which has been one of the hardest hit states in the US, by all numbers, by the hospitalization numbers, by the number of positive cases, by the number of deaths. We need to just keep doing what we've been doing to keep those numbers going down. Um, you know, it's challenging for everybody. Things are barely beginning to open up with lots of cautions and lots of let's see how this goes and before we do that kind of thing. No one really knows what's going to happen. It's when you live in a population dense state that has just all the factors that has made it so challenging, you agree that you need to proceed with caution in going forward. And so, like so many others, dealing with everything one day at a time and having good days and bad days in it, the sense of wondering what the new normal will be, what the future will be like. I had a moment a few days ago where, and I'll get into this in a few minutes in more detail, but I was thinking about a new design and most likely going in the direction of some DMC thread and pausing and realizing, okay, even DMC thread is not as simple as stopping at Michael's the next time I'm in that shopping center. There's going to be a little bit more to it, to picking up literally two or three things, skeins of DMC. And that's just a little bit of it's one thing to go through the very odd and strange but real routines of going out for food shopping, or the necessities that we need to, that I've been doing, that we all have been doing, and adapting to those routines, as we all are. But I will say that the other day when I was thinking about, oh, I'll just need to get these 2 or 3 colors of DMC. Oh, wait. Yeah. That was the first time I was really thinking about something that opened it up a little bit in a different way for me. Something else that I think about for every time I go out, which is not that often, mostly when I'm going out for food shopping, we are required to wear masks in stores here. There are signs at the front of every store. Most stores have somebody standing at the door. They are also counting. Most stores can only have 50% capacity, 30% capacity. I'm not sure what the number is. So there's always someone counting to check with that. And the importance of a smile, and how that we don't get that these days. For good reasons, I understand. Wearing a mask is not just about protecting me, it's protecting you. And a person never knows when they are a carrier. And I support that. I follow what's going on. I get that there's, I get all that. I just miss the gentleness of a smile when you're walking down the supermarket aisle and you just want to pass by somebody. Or you, in effect, are apologizing for the smallest little let me get around you kind of thing. And you could say verbally, excuse me, and all of that, but there's something about saying excuse me with a smile that I genuinely miss. I smile underneath the mask and nobody knows, and you never know who else is smiling at you. So that's something I miss, and I fear we're going to be without that for quite some time. So, but how about we get to some stitching talk here? So there's been a number of reasons that have contributed to me not being here on a video for a couple of months. I actually did start to film a video 2.5 weeks ago or so. and stopped after about 15 minutes and said, you know what, I'm not feeling it. There's so little that I had to share, and just decided to wait until I could feel it a little bit more. And it's partially been my mood and my, the state caused by everything. And it's also been feeling like I didn't know what I could be sharing, but I pulled together some things for today and we're going to go forward. There really was an important thing that this was the right time to be doing a video. And it is simply this. Coming up next week, May 19th to be precise. So today's the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, so Tuesday, but May 19th will officially be the 3rd anniversary of Works by ABC. And if you're new here, Works by ABC is my Etsy store, my design business. I do mostly cross-stitch patterns, but I also do some canvas work and black work designs. And I started it literally, my Etsy store went live. So that's what I say, launched my design business on May 19th, 3 years ago. Since then I've been selling in some other ways, including through Hoffman, through some direct sales with stores and so on and so on. But it's my 3-year anniversary. And so to honor that, I am having an anniversary sale. So, there's no need for any coupon code or anything like that, and I will put link down below directly to my Etsy store. I offer all my patterns in 2 ways. You can do either a PDF instant download or hard copy. Either way, there are 2 listings for every pattern. So if you're a PDF person or you're a hard copy person, the easiest way to work through my store is when you get to the main page, you can search by, what do they call them? Categories, I guess. Is it called categories? Anyway, something like categories, and just, click on PDF, click on hard or paper patterns is the way I've put it. So that way you're only seeing every pattern once, and then you could scroll through that. So now through May 31st, so basically the second half of May, 15% off all patterns, both the PDFs and the hard copies. And I will do free shipping in the US for the hard copies that need to be mailed out. My way of giving back and saying thank you to everyone who has supported me, for everyone who's been thinking about buying a pattern. This might be your initiative to do so. But it's an anniversary sale, and I'm so grateful to be here 3 years later and to be continuing doing the stitching, the work that I have been doing. It was interesting to me when I was on Etsy setting up the sale information and so on. I decided to do a little poking around statistics, very specifically had some ideas in my mind of what are my best sellers. And not surprisingly, that more or less corresponds to what patterns have received the most views. Basically a 5/6 that I kind of wrote down, with one of them being a real surprise. Like I would not have predicted it. The other ones I did more or less predict. I didn't actually calculate numbers, mostly because for every pattern I'm talking about, it would have been about adding 2 numbers together, both the hard copy and the PDF. And then it was like, well, do I care about the number of patterns sold? Is it more interesting to look at the views? And anyway, without actually listing the top ones, although I can say pretty clearly the top one, with both views and sales, is my gossamer lace in black work. This is actually stitched up. My model of it is sitting at Needleworker's Delight, which, like most needlework stores, has been closed for some time, although you can still order on the phone, email, and so on. So gossamer lace in black work was clearly my best seller in any category that I was looking at. And the others that I'm going to show you, again, kind of depend on which statistic you were looking at. It did not surprise me that Skeleton Mosaic, which was one of my my first group of releases, this came up. I wasn't surprised at all. And in the same genre, but definitely not more recent, it's still been a year and a half, The Death of Susanna Jane. It's a tombstone reproduction. Headstone reproduction is what I wrote. This is an actual headstone of a woman named Susanna Jane. I knew this one would show up, 6 pages from 1603. It has also been, you know what I didn't, I was only looking at Etsy statistics. If I had also added in Hoffman sales, Hoffman distributors, which go to stores, this would get pushed up pretty high. I don't know if it would surpass Gossamer Lace, but it would, I'm pretty sure it would surpass Skeleton Mosaic and Susanna Jane. It's just been a popular pattern, I think partially because it looks great with all 6, but I do also include a border that just neatly does 1 square, so you could do just 1 square, and it is definitely been a popular one through Hoffman. Also, not as high up as the Gossamer Lace in blackwork, but still pretty high, was Gossamer Lace in cross stitch. So the same general design, but cross stitches. I actually had designed the cross stitch first and then did the blackwork design based off of the cross stitch design. So those are really the top ones, because the Gossamer Lace cross stitch and blackwork were, I mean, they're 2 different ones. I can't deny that. But I was really surprised to see the next one that I'm going to show with you was pretty much right up there. I was so surprised. I didn't realize this. And that is blackwork quilt squares. This is one of my earlier ones. Definitely not in the first group. I'd have to go check it. Maybe in about the 3rd or so group of releases. Blackwork. You could just, I mean, these are quilt patterns that you could find, like if you were looking in a pattern book of quilt designs. What can I say? Log cabin, like that's one that's coming off. Oh, of course, it's right. I wrote it right on the back here. So this is Sunshine and Shadow, Tumbling Block, Ohio Star, Pinwheel, 9 Patch, Log Cabin, Card Trick, Lemoyne Star, Diamond in the Square. And as I had written here, some quilt blocks can have more than one name depending on the time error and or geographic location or any number of other factors. But again, I was surprised. I didn't realize how many sales and how many views this one had gotten. So I just thought it would be fun to kind of share with you all. It really does encompass quite a range of the 3 years of my designs. I will put a link in the bottom to get directly to my Etsy store. I hope you will take advantage of the sale and make some purchases and make the second half of my May busy with getting those purchases out to you. That would be awesome. What am I doing next? Okay. All right. What have I been stitching on in the last 2 months? I meant to look up the exact date that I did that last video. I'm guessing it's like March 20 something or another. I literally have only been working on one project since then. And I'm almost positive this was in the thumbnail for my last video. So it will be my next release. It's going to be something that will just be released on its own. I'm not going to, well, back up a second. One thing I've struggled with, and I'm just going to be honest here, in the last couple of months, as I know so many other people have, has been somewhat of productivity and staying focused. I'm doing some teaching online, which has been challenging. It's mostly through Zoom. It's a very different world to do that. I'm doing some tutoring through Zoom, very different. Doing a variety of other kinds of things. I will say that I had not felt very inspired in my designing world for any number of factors, and it's just been my reality. And it's just in the last week or so that I started to feel like I was exploring some ideas in my mind and doing some sketches and doing some thinking about it, and I was relieved. And I actually have some thoughts on why that started happening, and that's tied into what I'm about to show you. So all this to say is that I was so glad that I've had this main project to be working on. So it will be released on its own, not amongst a group. And I have been sharing it on Instagram, so if you follow me there, you've seen progress. I have actually unrolled it from the scroll frame just for you guys, just for this video, so we can get the sense of just how much is completed, and you could literally see how much or how little there is to go. So this is, get it in the camera view there. I have a thread that I'm in the middle of. Get that out of the way. It is another design based on a piece of lace. I think that's probably pretty obvious. I am working on a piece of 36 count linen. It's from Silk Weaver in the color called Crushed Cranberries. I am using 712, the DMC family of 712, so it's not white. You know, I don't know what you think you're looking at right there, but it's not a bright white. It's close. 712 is pretty close to a crew. Would you say it's a little bit brighter than a crew? I don't know. Take out a crew, take out 712. You compare, you decide. As I shared in my last video, the little bit different aspect that I'm doing with this one, or what do I want to say? Yeah, something that's a little bit different. When I was doing a little bit of testing of coverage and so on, made a choice, which I'm so glad, that rather than doing 2 strands of floss to get the solid coverage that you see here, I went with Flosh. Now this is a brand new hank that is not unrolled, or undone. Flosh is DMC. It's a DMC thread. It is. Where's the camera? Floche. It comes in these hanks, and if you look online, because it just says this is 10 grams, which, you know, how useful is that? Some sources say this is 150 yards. Some sources say this is 168 yards. And it's because I think some sources just copy from one another. I don't feel like unrolling this and actually measuring it. So your guess is as good as mine. It's something like 150 or 168 yards. One strand of this has been giving me this coverage. I'm trying to get up close. On 36 count, which is to say, really good coverage. And I don't have to deal with 2 strands of floss. I don't have to think about my threads laying nicely or railroading or laying them in any way. I'm just using 1 strand. So Flosh is not the most common thing to find in needlework stores. There are some stores that carry it. I have heard that Sassy Jacks carries it. I have heard that I think Needle in a Haystack out in California carries it. I think there's some big stores that carry it and probably some smaller stores that do too. I purchased this online through Etsy. I found I was actually somebody else, one of my stitching group members who had purchased some through an Etsy store, and I just went to the same store and bought it, and it was just the easiest way for me to get it. So the solid looking areas is stitched with 1 strand of Flosh, and then the lighter areas is only a tent stitch. So I'm trying to get up close there. So only half of a cross stitch, and that's with 1 strand of DMC. My original thinking when I started this project was going to be for the lighter areas, 1 strand of DMC, a full cross. But when I started to do that, the first point I started it, the full cross, even though it was definitely light coverage, wasn't light enough, or wasn't enough contrast to the fuller areas. And so doing 1 strand tent stitch gave that nice contrast. So you can see what I have left to do. It's, I basically need to, the mirror image of this needs to get done here. And I need to, do what you see on the bottom border here needs to be done up there. I started this project on February 29th. It's just convenient that I started on that date, so it helps me remember. It wasn't like I purposely wanted to do, what was the hashtag? Leap Day Start? Leap Day Sal? something like that. You know, a lot of people were doing new starts on February 29th. It's not that I purposely, it was just convenient that that was the day that I started it. So well, that really helps me remember it in terms of a date. Now, I will be perfectly honest. There is no way I would have stitched this quickly. So what are we, February, May, 3 months? Not even 3 months? March. Time is so weird this spring. March, April. So not even 3 months is where this is. I don't think I'll get it done by May 29th, which is to say exactly 3 months, but whatever. I would not have gotten this much stitch if it wasn't for these quarantine times. I'm definitely stitching more than I would just because of my schedule, just because of my life now and day-to-day life than I had time for before. So it doesn't have a name yet. I will need to come up with something pretty soon. So now, here's a little bit of news. I am going to do a giveaway for this pattern when it gets released. So I think it is pretty likely that the next time you see a Flosstube video from me, it will be that this is done. And in that video, I'll be giving away a copy of the pattern. Maybe even 2. We'll see. So if you would like to be entered in the giveaway to get a copy, to win a copy of this, I'm going to ask you to leave in a comment below, and I would like you to leave your favorite DMC color, like the number of your favorite DMC color, and that's going to come up more in a minute in my video. So if you'd like to be entered in the giveaway, please don't say giveaway, you know, all the things. But leave in your comment your favorite DMC color number. And there we go. So, all right. Okay. Oh, a little bit of business that maybe I should have done when I was talking more about WorksByABC, but that's okay. Oh, and I meant to, sorry. One of the, I can do this quickly. One of the pieces that I released for the Nashville market this year was this piece called Landscape. It is available on my Etsy store. It's also available through Hoffman, so other stores can get it as well. It has been very well received. The effect of the same pattern turning into an overall design, I love the way it turned out. I used Gentle Arts threads, and the modeling, the variegation in them worked perfectly. I was contacted by someone who was stitching it, and she wanted to let me know that she had run out of the blue, which is sugar plum. She was stitching it using the Gentle Arts threads that I had used. She had run out of the sugar plum, and she was more or less saying, you know, it'd be helpful if you let people know that you need 2 skeins of it. And I was really confused by her email, only because I knew that I in no way ran out of any of the threads. And I came up and I checked my Gentle Arts supply, and I was right. I had plenty of sugar plum left, like nowhere near. And her email did say that she was using on 28 count, and I'd stitch on 32 count, but I knew that that shouldn't make enough difference based on how much sugar plum I had left. It took me a minute, but then I realized what had happened. I stitched this using only 1 strand. And I did that because I wanted light coverage. This is 32 count, and in a typical 32 count, you would use 2 strands, okay? I wanted sort of a light, airy effect, and I totally got the effect I wanted. I didn't want it solid. It's great. But I had forgotten to write that on the pattern. And so that would be a valuable piece of information to know, because it clearly has been proven that the number of stitches that Sugar Plum has, which is 1,525, probably needs, actually I shouldn't say probably, definitely needs more than 5 yards. That's how they come. Gentle Arts 5 yards. Definitely needs more than 1 skein of Gentle Arts if you are going to stitch using 2 strands. So if you're stitching using 2 strands because you just like the look of 2 strands, if you're stitching on 28 count, you definitely want to use 2 strands, whatever your reasoning. If you're stitching on 2 strands, you're not going to have enough Sugar Plum for this design. End of sentence. If you're stitching using 2 strands, you're not going to have enough Sugar Plum with 1 skein. I have since fixed the pattern, and a patterns bot at this point clearly says that. Model was stitched using 1 strand. If you choose to use 2 strands, you will probably need to you will need 2 skeins of Sugar Plum. But I wanted to put this out there for 2 reasons. Number one, if anyone's watching who purchased it, is thinking about stitching it, you need to know that piece of information. And again, it's on new patterns. I put it on my blog, I put it on Instagram. I'm doing what I can to get the word out. But also a second reason, just to remind people that when it comes to your stitching, always remember you have options. You can, I've talked about this so many times. You always can change up colors, you can change up threads, you could change up fabric, and many stitchers do all of that. Don't forget, you also have the options to change up number of strands, which is to say coverage. And many people keep that in mind, and other people have their, this is what I always do. Sure. Try something different, see what it looks like. I know when I started this on 1 strand, I didn't know if it was going to look okay, and I was more than willing to pull out what I had started and try 2 strands if I didn't like it, but I liked it. So just sharing that fact and about the 1 strand, and just reminding you that that's something to give a try to. So, and again, the new patterns have it noted on there about the 1 strand. Moving along. All right. Things out of the way here. I wanted to, as I was kind of brainstorming, what could I talk about? Because I've only been stitching on 1 project, and what kind of show and tell could I be doing? One thing that I've recently shared with a friend, and it occurred to me I could share with more of you if you don't already know about it, is a pretty cool website. I first learned about it because of the Instagram page, and I'm pretty sure they put out a picture every day or at least a few times a week. And I don't know if I did it on a whim or whatever. I'm like, I wonder if there's a website. Yes, there's a website that is totally coordinated with it, and there's actually some cool features on the website. So the website / Instagram that I'm referring to is called Stitch Palettes. So stitchpalettes.com, I'll link it below, and the Instagram is Stitch Palettes. And what they, although I'm about to say this person or she, I meant to look up how this is run, take a picture and then pull out 6 colors from that picture and show you the DMC colors. And some days it's sort of like a monochrome design, and some days it's a not monochrome design. It's all kinds of pictures, all kinds of color palettes, and it's just really cool. The reason it was on my mind this week, I was on the website because I was looking for ideas for a color palette for a new design I'm working on. I'm working on a new design that is a very geometric based. I need 4 colors, and I don't want like a neutral to highlight 2 or 3 others, or one strong one with then some neutrals to go with it. I really need 4 strong colors. That's not quite 4 colors that work together. And so I went on this site because I knew about it and was just looking for ideas. And you could even, search palettes by scheme. So, if I was interested in contrasting schemes or vibrant schemes. You could search by theme or search by seasons or search by colors. And so it was just giving me ideas of possible color palettes that I could use. Now, here's where I'm going to swing back to what I used some minutes ago for the entering my giveaway. I had said to use your favorite DMC color number in a comment if you wanted a chance to win the giveaway for my new pattern. Yet to be finished, yet to have a release date, yet to even have a name. One thing you can do is actually even enter the DMC code for in the box below to find a color matches for it. So if you put in, I'm going to put in, would I say this is my absolute favorite? It's one of the ones I definitely like. Now, and I always forget, is it 161 or 162 or it's in that neighborhood. Oh, all right, that was not a good choice because there's only one thing that came up. Let me try 162. So for 162, you could see it showed up in, and they name each of these. It showed up in these, what do they say, 7 options. So it just occurred to me, you might want to go check out the website and like put in your favorite color number and see what pictures it shows up in. It's just sort of a fun thing to play with. And if you are looking for inspiration and ideas for like a new color scheme or like what I'm doing in terms, especially like when it comes to geometric designs and you want to do something different than the model or what the designer has on the front cover, but you're not quite sure what, or this is a great inspiration site. So I just encourage you to go like check it out. Yes. All right. And then also, as I was thinking, what else could I share in a little bit of show and tell? I've had a number of people in a number of ways over much time talk about the shelves and the books behind me. I know a very long time ago, I did do a little bit of a bookshelf tour. It's a little challenging for me. I do film on my laptop. I'll be honest, both my iPad and my phone just don't have very good recording capabilities. And so my first 1 or 2 Flosstube videos I did on my iPad. And I basically learned I'm not going to do any more on my iPad. So that's why I use my laptop. And so the time that I did try to do a little bookshelf tour, I was like holding the laptop and trying to see what was on the screen, blah, blah. So it's a little hard for me to do a tour because of that filming issue. But that doesn't mean that I can't like take things off the shelf and talk about them. And you can see that my shelves go, well, all right, so they stop there, and then beyond there are shelves with supplies. So the bookshelves are here, but there's also a shelf like over there at the top of the stairs that has one shelf of it is dedicated to books. And then in this direction, there's also a smaller, this is what happens, I ran out of room on the big shelves. So there's 2 smaller shelves that also have books on them. And basically there's books spilling out all over the place. Okay, so I was thinking, all right, I'll do something with my books today. What could I do? Well, one idea I had was, it's probably been a while, but I know I've talked about Mary Corbett on Flosstube. Mary Corbett runs a website, Needle N Thread, like the letter N Thread. I'll link her below. Amazing source of information of all kinds. So much on that website. She blogs 3 times a week. There's lots of times with all kinds of information. One thing she does from time to time are book reviews. There was a period of time where I was very consistently reading her blog, and because I was reading lots of blogs, I haven't been as consistent blog reader in the last couple of years, but I still do try to go check her out every once in a while and kind of catch up. But her book reviews would suck me in. And I would say that there's a fair number of books, of the books that I've purchased new, not books that I've picked up at used book sales and stuff like that, but of the books I've picked up new, there's a fair number that come from Mary Corbett's book reviews. So I thought, well, I'll take off the shelf, the books that I have that are in Mary Corbett's book reviews, and I'll share them. Well, then I went to her site. She has one like tab that you could just, collects together in one place, one place to link all of her book reviews. And I started writing down how many of the books of her book reviews I own. So she has on that page 115, basically they're links to other pages on her website, 115 book reviews. Now, I know one book that she's done a review for that was not linked on that page. It just could be an oversight. It could literally be the only book that is just not done there. Or it could be that she stopped linking to that tab and there's many more. I don't know. But there's 115 on that tab. And I went through and started to count. I own 27 of them. Okay. Now, there are some that I could definitely say, I bought this after reading the review on Needle and Thread. There are some that I could definitely say, no, I had this either before the book review or never saw the book review. I definitely owned this separate from the Needle and Thread review. And then there's a whole bunch where I question which way did it go. Did I see the book review of it? Did I see the book review, didn't order the book brand new, but then saw it at a used book sale and said, oh, I've read about this book, or some variation of that category. But when I counted it up and saw it was 27, I thought, I'm not going to take those all off the shelf. But it'll certainly be something that maybe over the course of some Flosstube videos when I don't have that much sort of present stitching and business and news to talk about, it certainly gives me some stuff that I will pull from and could share some more books from the shelf from you. But I did pull off a couple of others just to share some stories, and I thought you might be interested in stories. So the first one, and this one I'm not in any way saying go out and get it. I'm just sharing the story from it. The Reader's Digest Complete Guide to Needlework. The copyright of this book, I want to say, I looked at it before, 1979. I feel like I have seen this, probably coming through the big used book sale that I work at in March, that there might be some updated versions of this, like a more recent copyright. But it is, what it basically says on the cover. There's going to be a chapter in embroidery, chapter in needlepoint, knitting, applique, quilting, blah, 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 blah. It's one of these kind of catch-all books, and it definitely has a 70s flair to it. Now, the story of why I have this book. Before I lived in New Jersey, so this is many years ago, I was teaching down, well, it doesn't matter. I was teaching in another place before I moved to New Jersey. And it was a very small school that was like a startup. It wasn't a charter school. It was like before charter schools even existed. Sort of like, it was basically two businessmen with education backgrounds wanted to present a sort of a different way to do education. And they started a school. And so it was a private school, but it had a lot of parent devotion and energy and contributions. Very small. And we moved actually buildings during the 2 years I was there. First year in one building and then the other. In the new building, which was like a former office space, there was this sort of corner area that couldn't be used, like fire code wise, couldn't be used as a classroom space. It just was like this open area, and I think we put some lockers there or something, but it just became like a place where the kids would kind of hang out in the mornings and stuff, and it was great. It was just like this just small open area. It had, from what it had been before, some shelves that were, what do you call it when shelves are already there? The shelves were already there. And so the parents had this idea that anyone who had some books, donate them, and it would just become the school's library. Now, this school this building was literally only 2 blocks away from the local town library. And so we, as the teachers, the school, used the town library for research, for read, like for all kinds of real school needs of library. The parents' idea was just make sure there are books there all the time, so when there's some free reading time or something, the kids would have access. Great idea. What showed up on the shelves was mostly middle school reading, middle school age appropriate reading books. But there was also quite an eclectic variety of other donations. And believe it or not, this was one of them. So I'm going to pause here and let you know I am a thief. I'm fully admitting it. I'm a thief. I stole this book. I did. I saw this book sitting there and I was flipping through it, and I did take it home one night to just look at, which was perfectly acceptable. And I was intrigued, and I'm going to show you with one specific part, and I brought it back, and I was just aware that no one else was in any way looking at this book. And because of the one particular part that I was interested in, I took it at another time, and I admit I never brought it back after that. So yeah, I'm a thief. All right, the one particular thing that I took away from this that I was really interested in, I had never heard of or knew about tatting. This page is the last page of needle lace. There we go, tatting. I was so intrigued. And this was before I started bobbin lace. This is before I even knew what bobbin lace was. And there's only this many pages of instructions, and then there's a couple of projects. And there were, I couldn't explain it, but there was something about this that I was like, I really want to try this. And I remember going, so here are tatting shuttles. Here's a picture of them. And I remember going to a store, it wasn't Michael's, but it was some like equivalent of like a craft store like that. And it certainly sold like knitting and crocheting stuff. And I might have even have taken the book and showed a picture, but maybe not, I don't remember. I remember going up to somebody working in the yarn area and saying, do you sell tatting shuttles? Like fully expecting the answer of what is that or no, and getting, yeah, we have them over here. And they were with like, I mean, they only had one kind. It wasn't like there was a whole selection, but they were with like the crocheting and knitting needles. And I bought my first set of tatting shuttles, and I used those few pages in this book to teach myself how to tat. This is before YouTube, so there weren't really videos to find. It's my story of when you're determined to learn something, when you get intrigued by something and you're determined to learn how to do it, you make it work. And I remember the first night I had the shuttles and I was following, steps 1 through 5 or whatever it was. And I got to step 6 and I couldn't do it. And it wouldn't work. And I was laying in bed that night trying to figure out why wasn't it. And I finally had this epiphany of, oh, I need the thread to do that, not this kind of thing. And I got out of bed and went and tried it and realized, yeah, that's it. So, I still hold on to this book. I don't think I've opened it other than these kind of brief moments. I mean, I haven't used anything else in this book, but I hold on to it for that kind of memory and that kind of connection to knowing that this is exactly where and how I learned tatting. I just thought I would share that. And then I also wanted to share with you the story of this book. The Complete Encyclopedia of Needlework, Therese de Dilmont. This is called the 3rd edition. This copy is copyright 1996. There may be more updated versions of it. This was gifted to me by, actually was at that same small school I was at. It was the art teacher, and it was a parting gift when I was leaving. She recognized the budding interest that I had in needlework at that time, which is, nowhere near what it is now, but certainly the interests. And I remember her giving this to me, and she's saying, every good needlework person should own a copy of this. And I thought, wow, I guess I should. It is a reprint of a book that was first published in 1884. You can find this full book online on a few different sources. If you just Google this, you know, it's one of those kind that because there's no copyright on it, or the copyright's expired a long time ago, it is you can fully find the entire book online. For its day, the pictures that are in here, the engravings or however they did these, were amazing. It covers the topics of plain sewing, the sewing and embroidering machine, so machine sewing, mending, embroidery on white materials, linen embroidery, embroidery on silk and velvet, gold embroidery, applique work, tapestry, knitting, crocheting, tatting, macrame, filet lace, open work on linen, embroidered laces, needle-made laces, pillow laces, needlework trimmings, and miscellaneous. It's a huge thing. And, you know, to understand what this friend art teacher was saying, I'm just going to read a little bit that's on the forward to this. Therese Marie Josephine Dilmont, the daughter of an aristocratic Viennese family, has perhaps contributed more to the development of fine needlework throughout the world than any other person. Her influence is as strong today as in 1884 when the Complete Encyclopedia of Needlework was published in France. The encyclopedia was immediately translated and published in 17 countries. In its first 62 years, it sold more than 1.5 million copies. So she was born in 1846, studied in Vienna at an embroidery school. After completing her schooling, she moved to Donark, a village near Mulhouse, France. I may not be pronouncing right. Does Mulhouse sound familiar? It should. She founded her own embroidery school there. At the time when aristocratic women confined their embroidery to their salons and boudoirs, Therese was a pioneer. Mulhouse was also the home of Dolphus, Meg, and C. I'm so not pronouncing that correctly. A manufacturer that is known today as DMC. Manufacturer of fine needlework threads and materials. DMC opened its doors in 1746. Dilmont had been acquainted with the grandson of DMC's founder, and their businesses shared a close association for many years. And that's how Therese Dilmont's name got connected with DMC. The success of the embroidery school in Mulhouse enabled Therese to open shops bearing her name in Vienna, Paris, London, and Berlin. She traveled extensively, studied needlework in many countries, collected outstanding pieces of embroidery, and became internationally known. Her research and studies paid off in 1884 with the publication of the 800-page DMC, the Complete Encyclopedia of Needlework. So DMC is connected with this from the very beginning. And with her name, if you go on the DMC website, they offer a bunch of free patterns, and some of them are historical old free patterns, which is to say they were printed 100 years ago or even more. They more or less don't have any copyright now, and so DMC's put them on their website. I don't even think you could say that DMC still has the copyright. Don't quote me on that, because some of them I have also seen on other websites. Good, safe, not trying to cheat the world websites. So that's why I think that DMC no longer has the copyright on some things that they had published 150 years ago. Anyway, so I can't say that I've referred to this book much at all in the years that I've owned it. But there is something to be said, and I won't forget the woman who gave it to me and the way she said every good needleworker should own a copy of this. You don't need to own a copy of it. You could certainly look at it online. I will say this. Can you see right there? These shelves are tall, you could see. But right there is another copy of it. Because someone, a few years back, found a copy at I think it was a flea market, and was so excited to give it to me. Oh my God, I found this, and I just think you would so love this book. And I didn't have the heart to say I already owned a copy of it. I was just very appreciative that somebody thought of me that way. Now, I have shared here before So, but I have to share it again. So not only do I own this softcover copy, and that's a hardcover copy that are the same edition, but I am very lucky to own this version of it. And using assorted clues that are in this book, this is a copy from 1912. You can, I was just looking at it before starting this video just to confirm, yeah, and you can, I want to just be very careful with it. The binding is a little loose, but you could see, I hope you could see, the pictures and the engravings in here are the same. And actually, there are color plates at the beginning. I'm not sure if it's at every chapter, but there's definitely a few. And I would even say that, like, I think it was this one, that I specifically looked up the picture in my other book, and this one's a better picture. So some of the ways of publishing, I don't know how else to call it, were done better rather than being a reprint. I don't quite know obviously the terminology or the methods that were used. Like, here's another color plate. Two things that I love about this book. One is, so I picked this up at the used book sale that I work at every year in March, opening the boxes. This is one of those few times finding this in a box where I had found a treasure. And it says in the title page, Sister's Room. And I like to think that probably means it was in like a nun, what do you call it? I was going to say a nunnery. Is that the right word? You know, a convent. There we go. A convent. Sister's Room. That's a guess. And then as I was just trying to do a quick little comparison between these two editions, I just thought this was so funny. So I mentioned one of the chapters was embroidery, whitework embroidery. How's it phrased in here? Embroidery on white materials. That's what it's called in the 1996 edition. Yeah, you want to know what it's called in 1912? Right, get ready. I think this is just so funny. 1912. Embroidery upon white stuff. Okay? And the first paragraph says, formerly, the kind of embroidery we are going to describe was only known by the name of white embroidery. The term is no longer correct now that it is done in colors quite as often as in white. We have therefore headed this chapter, quote, embroidery upon white stuff. And the beginning of the chapter, that, you know, that very same paragraph at the beginning of this one, the exact same thing, and it just says, we have therefore given this chapter the more correct title of, quote, embroidery on white materials. Okay, I like white stuff better, because who would have thought editors or whatever in 1912 would have used white stuff? I mean, and what was actually the 1884 edition, like the original 1884, did they use white? Did Therese, use white stuff? I don't know. I just think it's so funny. Anyway, so there's one of the little treasures that I don't have too many, like old, there's a few, but not too many old books amongst my shelves, but this is one of them. So there you go, a couple of stories from my bookshelf, and maybe I'll share some more stories from my bookshelf if people are interested. I think that's going to be it for me today. I'm glad to be here with you all. I hope as much as possible you are staying safe, you are well, you are doing all the things that we need to be doing as we try to work our way through a new normal and a different kind of world. Hug all those around you that you can hug, and do virtual hugs for those who are not immediately around you. Do everything you can to stay sane and stay well. Until next time, bye.